I was halfway through unwrapping my turkey sandwich when I noticed them through the break room window. Two figures in navy blazers, clipboards in hand, standing beside my cubicle. My pulse didn't spike. It simply knew. Tessa Carmichael had finally pulled the trigger. The compliance officers were sifting through my workspace like they owned it. One was snapping photos of my computer screen, the other rummaging through my drawers with latex gloves, as if I were something hazardous. I watched for maybe 30 seconds before walking over. "Find anything interesting?" I asked, keeping my tone calm. The taller one lifted his head from my filing cabinet. "Miss Rodriguez, we're conducting a standard inspection based on reports of workplace violations." "Standard, right?" I replied. I already knew what reports he meant, and exactly who had filed them. Tessa was 3 cubicles away, pretending to sort papers while watching everything unfold. She'd been preparing this scene for months. "What kind of violations?" I asked. "Unprofessional behavior, systematic issues in client communication, and possible safety hazards in workspace organization," the shorter officer read from his notes without glancing up. "We'll need to finish this inspection before you can return to your desk." Before I tell you what happened next, take a quick second to comment where you're listening from. I'd love to know how far my story reaches. And please like, subscribe, and tap the bell because what I'm about to reveal completely changed how I see workplace politics. My name is Anna Morales, and I've worked at this major insurance firm for 4 years. I handle high-value client accounts, which means when I make a mistake, it costs real money. Tessa joined about 6 months after I did, and from day one, she made it clear she thought my position should have been hers. Tessa had this compulsion to be the smartest in every room. She'd cut into my client calls to clarify points I'd already covered perfectly. She'd CC our manager on emails, fixing grammar mistakes that didn't even exist. She'd volunteer for my projects only to suggest nonsense improvements. But what truly got under her skin was my silence about my wins. When I landed a big client, I didn't announce it at meetings. When customers sent thank you notes, I didn't forward them to the whole team. I just worked hard and went home. That drove Tessa insane, because she couldn't compete with success that stayed invisible. So she started watching, really watching. She noted when I arrived how long my lunches were, when I took breaks, and what I was working on. She'd stroll past my desk just to peek at my screen, ask harmless questions about my process, then imply I might be doing things wrong. I caught on early. Tessa wasn't just competitive, she was collecting evidence. She needed my downfall to justify her rise. And that's when I decided to give her exactly what she was looking for. I began making small, deliberate mistakes. Nothing serious, just tiny inconsistencies someone obsessively tracking me would spot. I'd type Thursday instead of Friday, then correct it an hour later. File a document in the wrong folder, then quietly fix it the next day. Use affect instead of affect in an internal memo, then catch it during proofreading. They weren't real errors, they were breadcrumbs. And Tessa devoured everyone. She started keeping a folder. I know because she left it open one day when she went to the bathroom, and I happened to walk by. Anna Morales, Performance Documentation. That was the title. Inside were printed emails, screenshots of my screen, and handwritten notes chronicling my so-called incompetence. While Tessa built her little prosecution case, I was working on something completely different, something that would matter when the time came. I started keeping a gratitude journal. Not for the company, not for performance reviews, just a personal practice I'd heard about on a productivity podcast. Every evening before heading home, I'd write down 3 good moments from my day. A client thanking me for solving a problem, a coworker helping with a tricky calculation, a supervisor complimenting my presentation. Simple, sincere appreciation for the moments that made my job meaningful. I kept that journal in my desk drawer next to my regular supplies. Nothing secret about it, just a small leather notebook filled with honest reflections. Each entry was genuine and detailed. Daniel Cho from accounting stayed late to help me understand the new billing software. His patience turned a frustrating day into a better one. Mrs. Patterson rang just to say how much she appreciated my follow-up on her claim. It's moments like that that remind me why I care about this work. Alicia brought coffee for the whole team during our budget meeting. Small gestures like that make the office feel like a community. Month after month, I filled pages with these notes. Every person who showed kindness, professionalism, or excellence earned a mention. Every positive interaction, however minor, was recorded with the date and a short note about what made it matter. What I didn't realize at the time was that I was assembling an accidental audit of workplace relationships. As I logged these entries, a pattern surfaced that I hadn't noticed before. Certain names kept repeating. Daniel Cho from accounting turned up dozens of times for his helpful explanations and collaborative spirit. Alicia from HR appeared often for thoughtful gestures and steady guidance. Even our strict supervisor, Mr. Walsh, showed up regularly for clear feedback and fair treatment of the team, but one name never appeared. Not once. In 18 months of gratitude journaling, across hundreds of entries cataloging positive workplace interactions, Tessa Carmichael never did a single thing worth recording. Not one supportive gesture, not one professional courtesy, not one moment of true collaboration or kindness. I hadn't planned it. I wasn't trying to exclude her, but as I reviewed the pages, the truth was unavoidable. Tessa contributed nothing positive to anyone's workday. She existed in our office like a drain, sucking up energy and attention without giving any warmth or light back. 6 months after I began the journal, she struck. It was a Tuesday morning when she asked for a meeting with our supervisor and the compliance team. She presented her neatly organized folder of my alleged performance issues and demanded a formal probe into my work quality and conduct. Anna Morales has demonstrated a pattern of errors and unprofessional behavior that jeopardizes our client relationships, she told them. I've been documenting these problems because I care about our team's reputation and our company's standards. Mr. Walsh listened, reviewed her evidence, and agreed to authorize a compliance inspection. Standard protocol required that I be informed, but Tessa explicitly requested the inspection occur while I was at lunch, so I wouldn't have a chance to prepare my area or conceal any supposed violations. And that's how I found myself watching 2 compliance officers rifle through my things while I stood there with half a turkey sandwich, aware that everything was about to shift. The officers were exhaustive. They photographed my computer screen, which displayed a perfectly organized client management system. They examined my filing cabinet, which held meticulously labeled folders in alphabetical order. They checked my email history, which showed clear professional correspondence with both internal teams and external clients. Then the shorter officer opened my desk drawer. "What's this?" he asked, pulling out my gratitude journal. "Personal notes?" I said, "Just some thoughts about work." He flipped through several pages, reading silently. Then he glanced at his partner and nodded toward something I couldn't see. They exchanged a wordless conversation with their eyes. "Miss Rodriguez," the taller officer said, "would you mind if we reviewed this notebook more closely? It appears to contain workplace observations that might be relevant to our investigation." "Of course," I said. "Take whatever time you need." What happened next is something I will never forget. The officers sat at my desk and began reading the journal from the first entry. They didn't skim. They studied each note carefully, occasionally pointing at passages and whispering to one another. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Other people in the office began to notice. Conversations dropped as colleagues realized something significant was unfolding at my cubicle. Tessa edged closer, trying to see what had the officer's attention so completely. After 20 minutes, the shorter one finally looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Miss Rodriguez," he said slowly, "how long have you been keeping this journal?" "About 18 months, I replied. "And these entries," he continued, "they're all genuine? You're not embellishing or fabricating positive interactions for some reason?" The question caught me off guard. "No, of course not," I said. "They're just honest moments of appreciation. Writing them helps me stay focused on what I enjoy about my work." The officers exchanged another silent glance. Then the taller one stood and walked toward Tessa, who was pretending to organize a stack of files. "Miss Carmichael," he said, "could we speak with you privately for a moment?" I watched Tessa's face change as she realized things weren't going according to plan. The officers weren't reprimanding me or confiscating anything. They wanted to talk to her. The three of them stepped into the small conference room at the end of the floor. Through the glass, I could see them talking, but I couldn't hear the words. Tessa's expression shifted from confident to uncertain to something close to panic. They were in there for nearly 30 minutes. When they finally emerged, Tessa's eyes were red and her face looked drained. The officers returned to my desk, where I'd been quietly responding to emails, still trying to process what was happening. "Miss Rodriguez," the shorter officer said, "after reviewing the evidence presented and examining your workspace and documentation, we're closing this investigation with no findings of misconduct or policy violations." Relief washed through me, though I sensed there was more. The taller officer continued, "However, we do want to address something that came up during our review." He opened my gratitude journal near the middle and turned it toward me. "In 18 months of documenting positive workplace interactions, you've mentioned 63 different people, colleagues, supervisors, clients, even security and cleaning staff. 63 people who made your work experience better in some way." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "Miss Carmichael's name," he said, "appears 0 times. The words seemed to echo in the air. I looked at the journal, then at them, then toward the conference room where Tessa still sat alone. "That wasn't intentional," I said quietly. "I just write about moments of genuine appreciation. If someone isn't in there, it's not because I was trying to exclude them, it's because—" I couldn't finish the sentence. Saying it aloud would make it real. "Because they never did anything worth appreciating." The shorter officer nodded. "We understand, and we think Miss Carmichael does now too." They gently closed the journal and handed it back. "The irony," the taller officer added, "is that she spent so much time documenting your mistakes that she never thought about how her own behavior looked from the outside. Your journal unintentionally created a record of workplace dynamics more revealing than any performance report." They packed up their materials and began to leave. As they walked away, I heard one murmur to the other, 18 months and not a single positive mention. Can you imagine being that consistent? They were too far away for me to catch the rest. I sat there holding my gratitude journal, trying to grasp what had just unfolded. Around me, the usual office noises returned, keyboards clattering, phones ringing, quiet talk about projects and weekend plans, but everything felt different. The investigation that was meant to destroy my career had instead exposed something far more devastating about the person behind it. Tessa Carmichael had spent months recording my smallest, harmless mistakes while remaining completely blind to the damage she caused everyone around her. She'd been so determined to prove I didn't belong that she never questioned whether she did. And now everyone knew. I didn't see Tessa for the rest of that day. She must have slipped out of the conference room while I was on a client call, and her cubicle stayed empty until closing. I assumed she'd gone home early, to process maybe, or just to avoid the stares of coworkers who'd seen everything. But the next morning she returned, and she was different. Tessa arrived exactly at 9, greeted people softly, and sat down at her computer without her usual display of self-importance. No exaggerated sighs about her workload, no loud calls meant to showcase her expertise. No wandering the floor to offer unsolicited advice on other people's projects. She was evolving. The compliance investigation hadn't humbled her. It had armed her. The exposure hadn't stopped her. It had simply taught her to be more careful, more strategic. Now, instead of direct accusations, she was whispering poison into people's ears, letting suspicion do the work for her. I sat there trying to process Daniel's words, the cursor on my computer screen blinking like a heartbeat. For months, I'd believed my journal was a safe place, a quiet, private effort to focus on gratitude in an exhausting environment. But now Tessa had turned it into something dark, something suspect. "I can't believe this," I whispered. Daniel sighed. "Believe it. She's framing it like you're keeping tabs on people. You know how she spins things. She plants doubt, then steps back and watches it grow." He gave me a sympathetic look and headed back to accounting, leaving me with a half-finished report and a mind that wouldn't stop racing. That afternoon, I couldn't focus. Every smile felt strained, every conversation shorter. The air in the office had changed, just a little, but enough that I felt it. It was the same trick she'd used before: isolate, discredit, dismantle. But this time, I wasn't the same person she'd tried to destroy. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my journal open, flipping through the pages that had once brought me comfort. Each entry was a snapshot of kindness, a thank you, a shared laugh, a moment of teamwork. They were proof that I wasn't the person Tessa was describing. For a long time, I stared at the last blank page. Then, slowly, I picked up my pen and wrote, "Tessa Carmichael has returned to her old game. But she's forgotten one thing. I document everything." I closed the journal and felt something new settle inside me. Not fear this time. Resolve. If Tessa wanted to twist my words into weapons, I would give her a story she couldn't control. She was doubling down. She couldn't handle that the compliance investigation had exposed her own toxicity. So, she was twisting my gratitude habit into something dark and suspicious. Has anyone actually believed what she's saying? I asked quietly. Daniel Cho shook his head. Not really. Most people think she's stretching, but Anna, she's relentless, and she's great at planting seeds of doubt. You know her methods. I did know. This was classic Tessa. When confrontation failed, she'd shift to quiet manipulation. She was turning my moment of vindication into her next weapon. That afternoon, I decided to test Daniel's warning. I started watching how people interacted with me. Were their conversations shorter than usual? Did anyone seem tense or cautious? At first, everything appeared normal, but by the end of the week, I began noticing subtle shifts. Alicia from HR, who usually stopped by for casual chats, suddenly seemed too busy whenever I walked over. Mr. Walsh's emails became more formal, his warmth gone. Even the security guard who used to greet me cheerfully just nodded without his usual smile. Tessa was poisoning my relationships one encounter at a time. I realized I had two options. I could confront her head-on, march into Mr. Walsh's office and expose what she was doing. But that would make me look paranoid and defensive, feeding into her narrative that I was overly fixated on workplace dynamics. Or I could take a different route entirely. I decided to give Tessa exactly what she wanted, just not how she expected. The next Monday morning, I sent an email to the entire department with the subject line: Personal Journal, Transparency, and Consent. The message was short and direct. Hi everyone, some of you may have heard that I keep a personal gratitude journal where I sometimes note positive workplace interactions. I want to be completely open about this and make sure everyone is comfortable. The journal is purely personal, a way to focus on positive moments during my workday. It's never been shared with management or used for any professional purpose. However, I understand that some people might feel uneasy having their kindness or professionalism noted in someone else's private writings. If you'd prefer that I not include any interactions with you in my personal journal, please let me know. I will absolutely respect your preference, and it won't affect our working relationship in any way. I value all of you as colleagues and want everyone to feel comfortable with our professional interactions. Best regards, Anna. I sent the email and waited. Within an hour, my inbox began filling with responses, but not the ones I had expected. Alicia was the first to reply. Anna, I had no idea you were writing about positive moments at work, but I think that's wonderful. Please don't stop including me. It makes me happy to know that small gestures matter to people. Then Daniel Cho responded, Keep writing. If more people focused on appreciation instead of complaints, this would be a much better place to work. Mr. Walsh sent a longer note. Anna, your gratitude practice sounds like an excellent way to maintain a positive perspective in a demanding work environment. I appreciate your transparency and professionalism in addressing this directly. One by one, my colleagues replied with support, curiosity, and encouragement. Several asked if I had tips for starting their own gratitude practices. Others shared stories about how small acts of kindness at work had positively impacted their own days. By the end of the day, I had 37 responses. 36 were overwhelmingly positive, supportive, and grateful to be included in my journal. One person didn't respond at all. Tessa's silence was deafening. While everyone else was celebrating the idea of workplace gratitude and mutual appreciation, she couldn't bring herself to engage. Responding would force her to admit she'd been wrong about my journal, wrong about my intentions, and wrong about how our colleagues would react. But the most remarkable part was still unfolding. Over the next week, something beautiful began to happen in our office. People started practicing gratitude openly. Alicia left thank you notes on desks whenever someone helped her with a project. Daniel Cho brought cookies to share with the team, including a note about how much he valued working with all of us. Mr. Walsh began starting team meetings by recognizing someone who'd gone above and beyond that week. The gratitude practice was spreading, creating exactly the kind of positive workplace culture everyone wanted to be part of, everyone except Tessa. In an environment where people were actively noticing and appreciating one another, her behavior became impossible to ignore. While others expressed genuine thanks for collaboration and support, her constant criticism and competitive undermining stood out like a siren. I watched her try to adapt. She began saying thank you more often, but it sounded forced and hollow. Her attempts at compliments came out as backhanded remarks that left people feeling worse than before. She even tried starting her own gratitude journal, but her entries focused more on her own achievements than on acknowledging others. The contrast was stark and uncomfortable. While the rest of us were building each other up, Tessa remained focused on tearing people down. And now that everyone was viewing workplace interactions through a lens of appreciation, her toxicity became impossible to miss. 3 weeks after my transparency email, Mr. Walsh called me into his office. "Anna," he said, "I wanted to thank you for introducing this gratitude practice to our team. The change in morale has been remarkable." "I'm glad it's had a positive impact," I replied. However, he continued, "This new focus on workplace relationships has also highlighted some concerning patterns with one of our team members." He didn't need to name her. "I've been observing interactions more closely since your email, and while most people are embracing this culture of mutual appreciation, one person seems unable or unwilling to participate in positive team dynamics." Mr. Walsh opened a folder on his desk. "I've also reviewed complaints and concerns raised over the past 6 months. Individually, they seemed minor, personality conflicts or communication issues. But together, with this new perspective, a troubling pattern emerges." He showed me a list of incidents, all involving Tessa creating conflict, undermining colleagues, or disrupting collaboration. "Using company resources to pursue a personal vendetta is unacceptable," he said, "but what worries me most is the systematic nature of these behaviors." He closed the folder and looked directly at me. "Anna, your gratitude practice didn't just improve our team culture. It gave us a framework for recognizing positive workplace relationships. Once we could see what positive looks like, the negative became impossible to ignore." I absorbed his words. "Tessa has been moved to a different department," he continued, "one where her individual contributions can be valued without the need for extensive team collaboration. It's not a demotion, but it acknowledges that she isn't suited for our collaborative environment." I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that the toxic dynamic was finally addressed. Sadness that it had come to this. "The irony," Mr. Walsh said, "is that Tessa's own investigation into your work led us to discover that you are one of our most valued team members. The gratitude journal she tried to weaponize actually demonstrated the respect and appreciation you've earned from everyone here." He was right. My simple practice of recording positive moments had become a mirror reflecting everyone's true workplace character. And in that mirror, Tessa saw exactly what she had become. 2 months later, I heard through office gossip that Tessa requested a transfer to our company's branch in another state, a fresh start with colleagues who didn't know her history. I genuinely wished her well, understanding that her behavior wasn't about me, but about her own insecurity and inability to find joy in others' success. My gratitude practice had simply made that truth unavoidable. The revenge I achieved wasn't cinematic, no public humiliation or career sabotage. Instead, I created a mirror so clear that she couldn't bear to see her own reflection. In trying to tear me down, she revealed who she truly was. My gratitude journal remains on my desk. I write in it every evening before leaving work, but now it serves a different purpose. It's no longer just about fostering my own positivity. It's a reminder that how we treat people matters, that kindness leaves traces, and that authenticity always wins. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about punishing someone. It's about creating a world where their behavior simply cannot survive. If this story resonated with you, if you faced a toxic colleague or questioned your worth because of someone else's insecurity, please share in the comments. Tell me about your experiences with workplace dynamics, gratitude practices, or moments when truth revealed itself unexpectedly. And if you want more stories about navigating difficult people and protecting your peace, please like this video and subscribe. Your support means everything, and knowing these stories help others feel less alone makes every difficult moment worth sharing.